My name is Rick Miller. I was born in a mining town called Murdochville. It's in the Gaspé Peninsula in Quebec, which is northeast of Montreal. Grew up working class poor, Anglophone in a primarily Francophone part of the province.
My name is Jules Koostachin, and I'm Cree from Ottawa-Pascud First Nations, which is Northern Ontario. And I was born in Moose Factory Hospital and lived with my grandparents in Moosonee and with my mom in Ottawa, back and forth, growing up.
The dominant culture there was French, was Catholic, but was working class. It's a poor part of the province. It was then, it still is now. But we lived as Anglophones. It was an interesting time because in the history of the province, we were losing our dominance as Anglophones. We were becoming, although we had always been in the minority in the population, we were losing what political power we had.
I do acknowledge the light skin privilege, but I also have to put it out there that I was raised by my mom, who's Cree, raised by my grandparents who only spoke Cree and lived the traditional lifestyle. So I grew up with that. Even though I look different than my family, I am part of that family. It's part of who I am. So going to school in the city was challenging because they knew who my family was, they knew who my mom was, and that's when I experienced the most racism, was going to school in the city. Because we were labeled as the Indian family, and as soon as we were labeled, then we just experienced so much racism and hatred. It was unbelievable. So a lot of painful memories associated with going to school in the city. So my mother also married a non-native man for about 10 years, and some stuff going on with that as well. But you know, his family also rejected us, and there was a lot of name calling and resistance about accepting us into that family. I think even to this day, we're still kind of, you know, the woman and the kids that he married, we were never actually included.
My grandparents were farmers. They were also fishermen. They were hunters. They were trappers. They were loggers. They were gatherers. We would always go into the wood to pick berries in season. We'd pick blueberries, raspberries, strawberries. We took from the land what we needed to eat, simply because we were poor and it was cheaper to hunt for our food than to buy our food.
And what's interesting is that my grandparents actually only spoke Cree. My grandfather was still hunting and trapping and fishing, and he used to go out for like 4 months at a time and then come back, and then my grandma would be like, you know, skinning the hide or cleaning the hide and smoking it, and then we would be, or I'd watch her actually make the moccasins and the mitts and all those kinds of things so that she can sell at the local store to the tourists who used to come up north. So yeah. And to go back to who I am, I'm also a mother of 4 sons, and it's Asivak, Mohegan, Tapwewin, and Powaikin.
There's quite a contrast between the life I live now in urban Toronto and the life I lived as a kid in rural Quebec. Here, when I'm hungry, I go to Loblaws. Here, when I'm too lazy to cook something up, I call pizza. Here, when I need to go somewhere, I jump on the streetcar, I go on the subway, and there are literally millions of people around me. There are people from all over the world living here in Toronto, and that was vastly different from my childhood. I honestly didn't see a person of color until I was 8. It was a monochromatic culture. It was just people of pallor, white people.
When I was a little girl, when I was sitting at school and they'd ask us to draw like self-portraits and stuff, I used to draw myself with brown skin and black hair. I never drew myself how other people saw me. Because I grew up with my grandparents as well, we didn't have mirrors and stuff, and we didn't spend a lot of time looking at ourselves. We were always outside. And so, you know, I noticed that my skin was lighter than everybody, but it didn't make a difference to me. It's hard to explain because I kind of walk the line. I live on that line of passing as white, but being Cree. And I am Cree. I don't know any other way. That's how I was raised, right? So I got my core values from my grandparents who are Cree people, you know? So, and then I have this other side where I can pass. And in a way that's been like really horrible because I kind of get it from both sides, you know? So even though I can walk into a room and don't even have to say anything about where I come from, you know, they don't question it or anything. But when I go back to my Native community, if I'm meeting new people or other Native people from different communities, I almost have to prove to them that I am who I am, which is a Cree person, an Innu. So it's kind of painful. It's hard.
The values of the dominant culture and the values of the culture I grew up in shared a systemic racism. There was a great fear of the outsider and a great deal of misinformation about people who weren't the same as us. Since there was so little contact with other cultures, we didn't know who they were, we didn't know what they were like. They, of course, being the other. And we just accepted all the stereotypes, all the negative stereotypes, and we accepted to all the racist values that come with the dominant Canadian society. Moving to Toronto, though, gave me a chance to drop the values that I had held as a child. I don't share the values that my family shares anymore.